Okay, if you're watching this video, I have sold my red, and I'm gonna tell you why. So last year in September, around the time when my dog died, I know, depressing way to start the video, sorry. I also shot my first music video for a high school friend back in Singapore. I used a Red Raven. She had budget because she's with a label, so that was pretty fun. So I rented out a Red Raven because I was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna rent out a Red. Had a great shoot, had a great time, and it was a bit depressing because the second day of the shoot, my dog was put down, and everybody on the shoot, like, they kept me in good spirits, which was, you know, the shoot was fun. And I had a good time with the camera as well. Like, I was really like, oh, this camera it's awesome. I love it. I love using it. And ever since I was 16, I wanted a Red camera. Like, I discovered filmmaking. I was like, oh my God, I love filmmaking. So much fun. So I researched it, and you're like, oh, Red cameras. Wow, this looks awesome. And you see the footage, and you're like, oh my God, awesome. So it was always my goal from when I was like 16 to get a Red camera. And I didn't know which specifically. I just knew I wanted a Red camera. I was after the Raven for years. Once I got into uni, which I was about like almost 19 when I started uni. Anyway, so last year, September, was when, after using the music video, I was given some investment money from my family because they set some aside for all their kids. So I have a half brother and a half sister. So, you know, they were given investment money at a certain age for like housing and stuff. I was given it to invest it into my business. You know, they're like, do whatever you want with it, but it'd be smart if you invested in your business. So that's what I did. And I had Red on my mind, and I was like, with the amount I was given, I could afford a Scarlett. Now, I feel like this was a rushed decision, and to be honest, I do regret jumping in and buying the Red Scarlett W. So even if I bought a Raven, I would have had quite a bit left over, because the entire working kit is £15,000. It's also $15,000. I like how Red does that, because if I were to transfer pounds to US or other way around, I think I'd lose money. I don't know. Or I spend more money. I don't know. Anyway, but I was like, nah, I want to get the 5K. And also the Raven had very bad crop, like a really bad crop factor. It was just, the sensor wasn't Super 35. So it's like, the crop was nuts. So I was like, okay, I'll get the Scarlett W. And I was super excited. And you know, the kit ended up costing like 22 grand. And I was just like, that's a lot, right? And then I think in total I spent 25 because I got like I got some other things that weren't for the Red, like a tripod and some lenses and stuff, the Samyang Cine lenses and stuff, or Rokinon Cine lenses as they're called in the US. I don't know why they have different names around the world. It's weird. It's the same lenses. Anyway, so you know, I got the camera about like January. I went back to the UK. We're living with my girlfriend's grandma for a little bit because we're still sorting out our housing situation. Like, this was after uni. Yaz and I went to Singapore. We traveled for a bit around Asia. Then we were in Singapore for Christmas and stuff, spent it with my parents. Went back to England. We're like, right, you know, because I can't live in Singapore because I'm not a permanent resident. And Yasmin, I could become PR, permanent resident, because my parents are PR, but Yasmin can't unless she marries me and I'm a PR. But also if I do PR, I have to do national service, which means 2 years in the army. I don't want to waste 2 years of my life in the army when I could be doing other things like growing my career. Like, that's just a huge stunt on your life. But anyway, I'm not here to talk about that. So I went back to the UK, living with grandma for a bit, and you know, sorting out lives to move somewhere else. And eventually we did move. We moved into a house my parents had that was near Gatwick, and now here I am in Manchester. So, you know, it's been kind of a long journey, a lot of moving around, which has been very I don't want to say traumatizing, but it kind of has been a bit, because it's like, it's very hard to get your career going when you're constantly living out of a suitcase and moving around all the time. There was a point we were in an Airbnb for I think 2 months in some really small town called Oxted. It was like a quiet town, but there was nothing there. There was no work there. So it was literally just, anyway. It's not what this video is about. Basically, when I first moved to the UK, I did a music video shoot for a UK artist, and it was awesome. It was my first paid shoot with the Red. It was really fun. I loved using the camera for that shoot. It was great. Albeit, the camera was heavy and caused me pain during the shoot. But I mean, that's gonna happen, right? And then after that, all the other things happened, like staying in that Airbnb for 2 months and not really, like, my career went nowhere after that. And I was trying, but I would say now I'm trying more than I was trying before, which is part of it. Like, especially in the freelance game, you got to be giving 110% every single freaking day. And that's what I've been doing since I moved to Manchester. I was like, I'm in the perfect place for this now. I cannot fuck around anymore. A year passed, basically, almost a year. Wait, is it September yet? It's not September yet. But basically, it's been almost a year, right? And I've had one paid shoot with this red. 20 grand, one paid shoot. Like, you kind of see where I'm starting to go with this. It's like the red isn't paying itself off. It's not really making itself back, and then some. Anyway, so then we moved to Manchester. Just gonna fast forward now because nothing happened before. And I used it for a shoot the first week of being here, which is awesome. It was a free shoot because I'm just trying to get my name out there, trying to like do some work here so I can show it to others, and get my foot in the door. And it's starting to work. Like, I'm definitely gonna make a video about how your location can affect the work you get, because I've been talking to others on IG and they're saying the same thing. But anyway. And what I realized in that shoot, I used the red for that shoot, and the images are great, the colors look great and everything, and it held, I didn't use any additional lighting, which is pretty interesting for a red, especially because they're very light hungry cameras, and everything looked great. So I was very happy with the videos overall. But what I realized during the shoot was that, holy hell, I feel like my wrists are gonna break, because you're trying to hold this, like, I don't even know how much it weighs. It's probably I think the brain is at least 4 kg. Then you add everything else on. The fact it's like not the most comfortable holding angle. Like, you're holding a handle like this, right? And after a while you're gonna start shaking, and it's very difficult because you got all this weight on the left of your hand, and you just have to hold it all up. And then you have a lens on top of this as well. And like, I'm trying to pull focus, and I'm trying to hold it over this coffee cup. And I'm just like, oh, this shot is not gonna come out well because I'm shaking. My wrists feel like they're gonna snap. I'm in pain. I can't really see the shot. It just made me realize, like, this is kind of being a bit cumbersome to shoot with. I've been using that word a lot when I describe the red. Like, people ask me. I've actually had the camera listed for sale for about 2 months now, since before we moved to Manchester. And people ask me why I'm selling it, and I say it's just very cumbersome to use, in my opinion. There's other things like the lack of inputs. So, like I said, you have to buy all the accessories, which are basically necessary things you need for the camera to actually fucking work. So this IO expander does not have an XLR input. This IO expander is so overpriced. I'm gonna put the price on the screen now because I don't remember off the top of my head. But it is so expensive for what it is. It provides you in and out ports and a way to attach a battery. That is it. In reality, it's probably just some wires inside this box. And that's what, like, Linus Tech Tips made a whole video about how much he hates how expensive the reds are and like how overpriced the entire system is. This is a normal SSD. It's not even M.2 SATA or anything. It's just a normal SSD. This particular one, a 480 gigabyte one, which depending on your compression, you can get between like 40 minutes of like lowest compression raw to maybe like 3 hours of like highest compression raw. This is 1,200 pounds, so around 1,003 US. Why? An SD card can last you hours and you'll pay $300 for it. This is like 4 times the price. And then you have to get a second one because you will run out of space. That happens. That's happened to me multiple times. You run out of space and it's just like, these file sizes are huge. Anyway, what was I saying before? I totally forgot. So basically, oh yeah, they're right. They're expensive, right? So, it doesn't have, so the other thing, the IO ports. Okay, so there's no XLR input on this particular IO port back. If you want to get the XLR input IO port backing thingy, you have to pay $3,000 for the accessory just to do that. And it's another huge chunk added onto the back of your camera. I mean, you would replace the current IO port that's on the back, the V-Lock IO port, and you'd put this huge chunk just to have XLR inputs and everything else that's already there. So just to get XLR inputs, I had to pay $3,000. I think around 2 times what this current IO V-Lock plate is worth. Why? Like, I was just looking at other cameras, like the C200, for example, right? $7,000 when it first came out. I think it's around 6,000 now. You get XLR input, you get RAW, you get MP4 as well, you get 4K, 12-bit RAW, you get 120 frames a second at 1080, which a lot of people say is like unusable, whatever. Gets 4K 60, 10-bit RAW, which is great. And you also have autofocus. Now, I know a lot of you are gonna say, oh, professionals don't use autofocus. It's not that they don't, it's that when they're shooting, they don't, but maybe they use it to get the shot set up, and then from that point on, they won't use autofocus. When it comes to Reds, they do and they don't have autofocus. They have it in the sense like you can, well, I was gonna say tap. You can set a point for it to focus to, and it will focus to that, but it's kind of like using an A7S II to focus. It will hunt for it. It's not very good autofocus. Basically, I just wouldn't use the autofocus at all. And there is no continuous autofocus, just like the Blackmagic cameras, the Pocket 6K and 4K and stuff, which, it's fine. It's not a big deal to me. I'm used to manually focusing. I do that for my work anyway, so it's whatever. I think the issue for me is that this camera has just become so cumbersome, and it's also the fact that, like, the debts I have from this camera, albeit I was given damn battery, dad. Yeah, and it's just like, if the camera isn't making me money, what is the point of it, right? And it's a shame. Like, some people say cameras are investments, and to be honest, I thought so too, up until I watched one video today. Today being the 14th of August, where basically the guy's like, a lot of people think cameras are investments, and the truth is they're not, unless they're making you money, because as soon as you buy it, they depreciate so fast. Apparently, they depreciate faster than cars. Whether or not that's true, I don't know, because I know cars, if you maintain them well, they can be collector's items. Cameras, if you maintain them well, like, probably not, especially digital cameras. I think older film cameras, for sure, older VHSs are now very popular, but even the VHS cameras are still being sold for maybe like a few $100s, not like tens of thousands of dollars, whereas film cameras, if you got like a proper working one, probably get a few grand for it. This Red, it's depreciated so fast, and with the Pocket 6K coming out as well, it is not helping the fact that I'm trying to sell it. I mean, if you're watching this, I have sold it, so what I just said is kind of irrelevant. I think the main thing for me is just the overall cost of this camera, and with every problem I have with it, the solution is just to throw more money at it. Like, oh, the batteries don't last long enough, I just gotta buy more batteries, and they're expensive. There's no XLR input, so I have to use an external recorder, or I have to buy a $3,000 accessory. I honestly hate that they're called accessories. I mean, it's just smart marketing, and it's smart that they all just kind of like fixed, like clip or fix together or screw together or whatever. But only being able to use a proprietary system makes it so damn expensive. And they can make it that expensive because they know you're not going to be able to go to anyone else. It's true, there are other manufacturers. Well, there's very few other manufacturers for certain pieces. Like, I know Wooden Camera, they do some things for like this, where the side handle goes, you can put like the red sidekick or something, which is basically so like a first AC can like input stuff or hit record for you, so that the actual DP can just focus on framing and the shot and whatever. But it's just extremely annoying that the only solution for the issues I have with this camera is throw your money at it. And the fact being that I'm not making a lot of money with this camera, if any at all, means I can't actually address any of the problems anyway by throwing money at it. I have no money to throw at it. So if you're watching this, I will be making a video after this about what camera I've bought to replace it. I will be honest, there are two cameras I have in mind right now. One of them I mentioned in this video already, that is the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. And the one that I wanted to go with before the 6K even came out was the Canon C200, which I've also mentioned in this video, so yeah. That would be, just for all the reasons for the C200 I've already listed, 4K 12-bit RAW, the dual pixel autofocus, which is excellent and would be very useful if I put on a gimbal and stuff like that. The Pocket 6K, I've already made 2 videos about this at this current point in time. Who knows, maybe there's more. And there are a huge list of reasons why that would be a good camera to have. It's basically like having a 6K cinema camera, but teeny tiny. And that is just very appealing to me. Sorry, this is gonna be like kind of a long video, but I just feel like I need to get my full explanation out there so that like if I get all my thoughts out, I just them all out to you guys, then you'll fully understand why. And there's like just two more things I need to talk about. So I was talking to a friend on Instagram. He's this a filmmaker in Hawaii. Endure Films. You guys may have seen his stuff on Instagram. And we were talking about like our businesses and stuff. And he asked like, oh, so have you been using the Red a lot for client shoots? And I said, honestly, no, I haven't, which is depressing. Very sad. It's not even like, oh, they don't want to pay for Red, so I've been using A7. It's just like I just had no client work. But anyway. And he told me how with his A7 III, he raked in a large amount of money. I don't know if he'd be okay with me saying the specific amount of money, but it's over 10 grand. It's a lot over 10 grand actually. So I'll leave it like that. It's between 10 and 50 grand. I'll put it like that. And you know, that's a lot of money in 1 year. And like his business, he runs it so like the client will pay more if they want things shot on the Pocket 4K. So I'm assuming the Pocket 4K would deliver 4K, the A7 would deliver in 1080. Who knows? I don't know, I didn't ask. And I was like, damn. damn. That's really amazing. And you know, I just told him like, I'm not really using the Red at all for any work, which is a shame. And I said to him like, you know, if I could do it again, I probably won't even get it. I would have got something else, because the thing is, with the money I was given to invest in, I just bought one camera. Like when I think back to it, that is so dumb. so dumb. Right now I'm using a 90-pound light to light me, and it's doing a fair job. The Yongnuo RGB stick is actually a pretty damn good light for the price. But I could have bought an Aperture 120D. I could have bought the 300D, to be honest. I could have bought 2 of them. I could have bought 4 of them. But anyway, and I could have bought like, I mean, I have the Rode NTG2. I could have bought the NTG4, although the NTG2 is pretty good. I could have bought a better external audio recorder, because apparently after doing some research, I have the H4n Zoom. I've had this since I was 16, still going. I mean, it's like sticky for some reason, and the back plate for the batteries has come off, but it's still running, still works. But apparently it's not very good in terms of phantom power delivery to the NTG2. So, you know, I could have bought a better recorder. And yeah, so we kind of, how did that conversation finish? Just give me 1 sec. So I had to read the Instagram messages. So after I told him about the, like, I'm not using the Red, he said how like, you know, if you sold the Red, you could always get like a cheaper, but just as good camera solution, like the Pocket 4K, which was the only thing out at the time. This was before the 6K came out, which was like a few days ago, obviously. So, and then he's like, you know, and if a client ever says to you like, oh, I want this shot on Red, then you just rent it. And I don't know why that didn't occur to me before. I think it was just the pure like, I want a Red in my head. And I honestly regret having that kind of mindset, because it's funny to say or weird to say, but owning a Red has made me realize I don't need a Red. And I think that's what it's all about, is you need to really think, what do you need for the client work you're doing? Like if you're shooting weddings, do you need a Red? Or do you just need to get like 2 or 3 of a specific type of camera, like the GH5s? Like there's a wedding filmmaker I follow on YouTube, but he just bought a C200, funnily enough, but he was shooting on like 2 different GH5s or something, and he shoots with like another guy, or maybe 2 or 3. And like, you know, that's for weddings. Or if you're doing like food stuff, an A7S2, A7 III, I almost said the A7S III, isn't out yet, Sony, still waiting. The A7 III is a great camera for that. Like when it comes to the type of work you're doing, do you need Red? And why do you need Red? And for me, I was just thinking like the quality, the Red RAW, the slow-mo. I honestly don't take advantage of the slow-mo that often. Like this thing can shoot 300 frames a second at 2K HD, which is crazy, right? I've never used it once. I've used it to test it out, and that's it. I honestly don't use it for any client work. The highest I shoot is 4K 120, but even then I don't use that often. I've done 4K 60. No, sorry, 5K 60. Because you can do 5K widescreen 60, or you can do 5K full frame 50 frames a second. And that's probably the one I've used the most. Peter, the Hawaiian filmmaker I was talking about, then carried on saying how like he knows people who sold Alexa Minis for the Pocket 4K, which is crazy, right? Like Alexa Mini is a beautiful camera. Some would say better than Reds for the, like the color science and stuff. I think they complement each other in ways, because like you have a red with the high resolution and everything, you have an ARRI for the color science and everything else. But like, you put it like this, you get pay 2.5 grand, pay $1,000, and you've got 6K raw. Like pay $1,000 for like the cage and all the accessories and stuff, and you've got 6K 12-bit internal raw out of a camera with very good dynamic range. It's like 13.5 stops of dynamic range and you use 6K. The Reds are king of dynamic range, true. This has like 17 stops of dynamic range, 17 and a half or whatever. It also has an HDR mode you can turn on called HDRX, which gives you 18 stops or 18 or more, probably like 18.3 or 18.5. Not a big deal, but it's an additional stop and it does actually make a difference. I've used it before and it's very, very cool. But when I think back to how often have I used that feature among all the other features it has, how often do I need them? It isn't often. And with like all of this being put together, thinking about the client work I'm doing, which I'll tell you about in a second for what I'm doing in Manchester, or what I'm aiming to do in Manchester, it's like the Red just isn't needed. I could get a beautiful image out of something like the C200 or the Pocket 6K, and I could still rig those things up. So it'll still be fun. Like I think rigging a camera is so fun. It's so cool. Like slapping it into a cage, putting on a cool monitor, your audio solution, your battery, your memory solution or whatever, because like the Pocket 6K you can do an SSD rather than just an SD card and all that kind of stuff. And it's fun, it's cool. And I think that was another thing. I just was obsessed with the cool factor of a Red camera, which honestly is not a reason to buy a camera. Like there are some fugly cameras. The Pocket 6K, Pocket 4K, the ergonomics are not that great, but the image out of it is like, or there's the Zcam E2, the 6K one, there's an 8K one as well. It's literally a gray box with buttons on it, but the image out of it is fantastic. It's not really something I'm after though, I'll be honest. And yeah, like that's just kind of it. So at this point in time, I'm still trying to sell it, but if you're watching this video now, I have sold it. Right, so the kind of client work I do, just making sure I'm not cutting off my head here. Right now I'm trying to focus on food. There's a lot of food places in Manchester. There's literally like food Instagram pages in Manchester, and they tag all the like popular good food restaurants. Obviously restaurants sell food. Why did I say foodie restaurant? I meant foodie restaurants. Like if you're a huge foodie, you'll love this restaurant. That's what I meant. And I've looked at the food, I'm like, oh my God, I want some of that. And I just emailed all of them. I'm still going through it. That's what I'm doing right now. And just reaching out, be like, do you need video work, and explaining how I could help them and all that kind of stuff with video. And like, I just don't need a Red for it. Like, it's crazy to say I shot coffee with a Red. Now, I know all sorts of things are shot on Red and ARRIs and whatever, like high-end commercials and stuff. But when you're doing lower paying stuff, that isn't really going to cover the cost of a Red. Because how I would like to price a Red is my fee for a day, and then the fee of using a Red for a day, and then also the fee of isn't that it? Yeah. So my fee for the day, and then the fee for using a Red for a day. That is how I'd like to charge it. But depending on where you are in your career and where you are in the world, different cities will have different kinds of budgets because of the businesses that are in that city, and you have to be realistic sometimes. Like, people aren't going to be able to afford it, especially if they're independent businesses here, which there are quite a lot of. And so it's just like, it's having a Red affordable. Now, selling this Red, unfortunately, especially with the 6K coming out, the Pocket 6K coming out, I'm probably looking at most 14 grand, which is a huge loss from 22 grand. But imagine if I wait one more year and the Pocket 8K comes out. I mean, I'm being serious. Like, I honestly expect that to happen. The Pocket 8K will come out and it'll just be like, oh my God, it's like, who needs a Red when you can get the Pocket cameras? Haha. And honestly, they're kind of right, which is distressing. Like, when I made that first video about the Blackmagic Pocket Cinemax 6K, I was dead serious. When I saw it was announced on Instagram, it was all I could think about for the next 2 hours while I was trying to fall asleep. I was like, damn, why don't I just buy this camera? Just get rid of my Red, buy this camera. And like, yes, there's 4 stops less of dynamic range. But when you look at like how close the images are in terms of quality. Also the fact that it shoots 1000 more pixels, or is it 1 million more pixels? It shoots an extra K. It shoots 6K compared to my Scarlett's 5K. Now, yes, I would be losing Red Code Raw, which is an amazing codec. Honestly, so easy to work with once you understand how to use it. But Blackmagic Raw apparently is also very good. It looks easy to work with as well. It works well in Premiere Pro, and the end result is still amazing. So I don't know. That's my reasoning for selling the Red. There's a lot of these videos online, which is, I guess, sad in a way, because as a filmmaker, you want to have like that ultimate goal of like you have an ultimate gear goal, and you're like, I want the Red, right? But I would honestly say, don't waste your money. Unless it makes sense for your business and you need to use Red consistently, like on a weekly basis, right? For your business, for your work, maybe it makes sense to have a Red. But if you're like me and you're freelancing and you're trying to work your way in, and for some reason you have the opportunity to buy a Red, don't. I would invest in lights, because those things will never ever lose their value. Lights are always needed, always useful, always a necessity in the filmmaking world. A camera can be replaced every year, lighting cannot. There can be improvements on lights, sure, like the Aperture 120D Mark II over the Mark I, it's like 30% brighter. I would still happily use the Mark I. It's just 30%. Like, yeah, it's a difference, but it's not a big difference. Or you can have the 300D, and now there's the 300D Mark II, not the biggest difference, right? And yeah, there are new innovations like the Astera pixel tubes. That's cool. That's like a different kind of lighting, you know, like there's Aperture 120Ds with 300Ds are like the soft, like, I mean, it can be soft or it can be like the harsh lighting or whatever. Different lights for different situations, and those are always going to be useful. But cameras can be replaced yearly, hell, almost every 6 months. Camera manufacturers are working damn hard, and every year they're trying to release something that you will want to buy. And honestly, they are doing a good job on that. So that's kind of my reasoning for selling the Red. If you guys have any questions, if you guys are like, oh my god, you're making a mistake or whatever, I've heard that already. So, you know, if you're gonna say you're making a mistake, don't bother. Because my mind's made up. And honestly, the money I'd have left over, I forgot to say, from selling it after buying the Pocket 6K is just a huge deal for me. Being in a bit of a kind of a financial rut right now, and work just kind of starting to pick up, which is a very good thing for me. I'm really happy it's starting up. But it would be good to have some spare cash in the bank to know that if work becomes thin, then I am able to buy food and get around town and stuff, and like stuff like that. I mean, living off of rice is not the most fun. And yeah, like, it's also just like not getting client work but owning a Red. It's just ridiculous. It's literally like redundant. I should have sold it I never should have bought it, but having bought it, I should have sold it a long time ago. But there's no point in living in regret. If you're watching this video, it means it's already sold, and it probably means I have either a C200 or a Pocket 6K or maybe something else, who knows, Pocket 8K. But yeah, thanks so much for watching this video, guys. Yeah, comment below your thoughts if you want to give your input or anything. If you're looking to get a Red, I would just say really think about it. Like, really think about it. Do you need it? Is it necessary for your work and all that? I wish I had thought about that more, to be honest. Yeah, thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe. See you around. Peace.